would you do if your child came home from school and told you that they got in trouble, that they were told they were not allowed to invite their friends to an Easter sunrise service? You'd probably be shocked, probably surprised that here in the United States, such a thing would happen. Well, unfortunately, we at Pacific Justice see this happening all the time. And in the second half of the show, we're going to interview one of our attorneys about an actual case matter that we're dealing with right now involving such a child. In the first half of the show, though, I want to address what you can do positively and proactively involving public schools. And specifically, let me just give you an example of why I think this is so important. Public schools have really moved in the wrong direction for quite some time now, dealing with moral issues, dealing with philosophy, ideology, attacks on Christianity. We see it happening all the time. Even in charter schools, many people think that charter schools are fine, they're safe, they're wonderful. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. It's often not the case. Just recently, the California Charter School Association decided to recognize as the Teacher of the Year award a kindergarten teacher who in a private charter school academy, decided to tell the children all about how to be transgender and what it means to be transgender, and actually introduced a child into the classroom as transgender without ever talking to parents, without giving any notice to parents, or even being willing to respect the opportunity of parents to opt their kindergartner out of that presentation. That teacher was recognized with a Teacher of the Year award by the California Charter School Association. That should be a big red flag to everyone. So we see a lot of things happening on the charter school side. We also see, of course, many reports on the public school side. So the big question is, what do you do? What can we do to have a positive, proactive impact on the kids at public schools? Now, obviously, if you're a parent, you can homeschool, which is great. It's fantastic. You can be part of a homeschool consortium. If you can afford it, you can put your child at a private school or a private Christian school. Even then, you've got to be careful as to what they really teach and what they're really about. But for most Americans, public education is seemingly the only option that many of them see that they have. So what could you do? And even if you don't have children in public schools, we don't want to ignore these kids. What could you do to have a positive impact? Well, I want to talk about that now. And first, I want to say right up front that we have a wonderful book that talks all about what you can positively do. It's a book called Reclaim Your School. It was written by my wife, Suzanne, and I. And it talks all about the strategies that legally you could take to evangelize public schools, what students can do, what teachers can do, parents, school board members, churches, ministers, everyone. And it's available right now for a free download. You can download this right now from your computer. You just go to our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, and you can download this book for free right now if you go to our website, pgi.org. But for those of you who don't have time necessarily to read the book, I'm going to highlight some of the key points, key takeaways that I think you'll find very significant. First is what students can do on their own. For example, book reports. We've had cases where students wanted to do a book report on, say, the Gospel of John, or a book by Chuck Colson, called Born Again, or some other book, Christian book. And the kids are often told, oh, no, you can't do that book. Or they're told, okay, yeah, you can do a book report on that, but if it's an oral book report, though, sometimes they're told, well, but you can't do the presentation in front of the whole kids, the kids in the class. You have to do it just with me, the teacher, in a closed room away from all the other kids. They can't do that, folks. I mean, they can try to do that, but it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. Students can't be censored and treated differently simply because their speech, or in this case, their book report, happens to be with a book with a Christian biblical worldview and perspective. Another example is T-shirts. Hey, students can wear a Christian T-shirt, a T-shirt with their church information on, or their Christian club information on it, just like students can wear T-shirts with other information and other materials. Now, if you have a private school that has a uniform policy, okay, they've got to comply with the uniform policy, but most don't, at least not to the extent to which they could ban students from wearing T-shirts with some kind of information on it. Another example of student speech is distributing their testimony. We at Pacific Justice Institute, we defended a student in their ability to be able to hand out gospel tracts. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the second segment. But they're protected to do that. They can hand out their testimony. They can give it to their friends. This is protected speech. And a very important case called Tinker versus Des Moines Unified School District made it very clear that students do not surrender their First Amendment rights at the schoolhouse gate, and that they have those free speech rights to be able to share their faith. They can't be disruptive, okay? They can't go into a classroom in the middle of an exam and disrupt the kids. They can't do that, obviously. And I never hear that happening. But they can do it, say, during lunchtime, break time, before and after class. They can also participate in a talent show. I love to hear how students decide to sing a song that glorifies God in a talent show. And we've gone to bat. We've had to defend students before in the past where they're told by the administration or the teacher, oh, you can't do this. That's religious. Oh, you can't do that. We had one case in particular involving a kindergartner. And this was down in the San Diego, California area. And he had a song he was going to play about God, and it was a wonderful song. They said, oh, no, you can't do that. It's too spiritual. You can maybe do God Bless America or God Bless USA, because people don't really take the word God that seriously in those songs. That's what they said. We went to bat for that kid, and he was able to play his song, and that was wonderful. What about Christian clubs? These are even more powerful than student-initiated speech, because it's a Christian club is almost exponential in terms of their influence. And here's how. First, in addition to having the club meetings themselves on campus, along with other clubs, and this is also protected specifically by federal law called the Equal Access Act, which is fantastic. But they can also do a number of other things. Like, for example, they can have something called the fifth quarter. This is where they meet in the school gym, and they may have pizza and soft drinks, and they have show highlights of the football game, for example, and the best plays. And then after they show those highlights, they can have some football players maybe sharing their testimony, or they can have an outside speaker come in, maybe an ex-football player sharing his testimony. And this is protected. They're a student club using school facilities. They can also actually have a revival rally if they wanted, where they invite an outside speaker to come in. My wife and I, we arranged to have this working with some students up in Orangevale, California, where they started a Christian club, and then they reserved the use of the quad of the school right after school hours. And when the bell rang, boom, they put on this full-blown revival rally. They had a Christian band playing. It wasn't my kind of music, I'll just tell you that. Jesus, salvation. Okay. But it was very effective, and the kids came. And they had someone preaching the gospel. They had someone who was an ex-gay giving his testimony. Then they had Bibles handed out. They did it again. A number of kids came forward to receive Jesus. This can happen. In fact, there's a ministry called the National School Project. They're now doing this. They saw what we did. They now took this, and they're now doing this across the country. And we at Pacific Justice are backing them in every school district, at every school that they're doing this. It's a wonderful opportunity to get involved. I encourage you to do so. Then you can have also presentations taking place during school. You can have, for example, you can have tutoring. Churches have gotten involved before. I know in San Bernardino, a pastor who really made an effort to make a difference there in the San Bernardino area, working with other pastors, started putting on tutoring programs on campus after school hours. Another pastor had a bus, picked up kids, brought them to their church. So from 3:30 to 6:30, they had the kids, they ministered to them, had tutoring programs. There's wonderful things that you can do to actually come alongside public schools and help them and help the students. Some even have like chaplaincies where they make an effort to go to school and in an informal way, minister to these kids in the hallway during lunchtime, and just to go alongside to do that. My wife did that. She helped working with a brand new church. She helped create the youth program by going on campus, developing relationships, and helping to lead kids to Christ. And they became a part of the youth program. And more than half the adults that were part of that church were there because their kids came first. And their kids came first because my wife went on campus and reached out to them. This is something churches can do, and we at Pacific Justice Institute can work you through this. We can help you do this. as well without charge, and defend you if there's a problem. You can also have release time programs. I love release time. This is where you have like 4th, 5th, or 6th graders meeting often during lunchtime off campus. And we talk about this in our book, Reclaim Your School. And it's legal, it's protected. The Supreme Court has held it's constitutional. All 50 states say it's legal. Most school districts have already authorized it. It just is not happening anymore. You can bring this about. There's also a wonderful school program, after-school program called Child Evangelism Fellowship. It's a national, international program where they have after-school Bible clubs for kids in the elementary school level, also at the junior high level. It's a great program. Go to their website, Child Evangelism Fellowship. They're looking for people wanting to step up and have these after-school ministry programs. Then you can also, outside groups can even come in and lease the school facilities. They can have rallies on school facilities. They can even have outside Bible studies and praise groups on school facilities. We at Pacific Justice, I know I personally defended one of these in Rio Linda, of all places, one of Rush Limbaugh's favorite towns to talk about. Well, we actually helped get a revival rally, or not a revival rally, a Bible study praise group defended after school hours. And that was protected. And then you can even have baccalaureate services. I love these. Now, these can actually be done through the Christian club on campus. On campus, in the gym, it's protected, it's legal. You can have an outside minister brought in, you can have people sharing testimonies. This is an incredible opportunity to bring baccalaureate services back on campus on every high school. If check it out, find out if your local high school is not doing this, then you can do this. Work in cooperation with the Christian club on campus. We at Pacific Justice Institute, of course, we'd love to help you to make a difference. There's many more things I could talk about that are in the book. It's called, once again, Reclaim Your School. It's available for a free download from our website, pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org.
So on June 7th, I went to pick up my daughter from kindergarten, and she ran up to me and said that her friend was no longer a boy, he was now a girl. He had come to school dressed as a boy. The teacher had read the book, and afterwards he went into the bathroom, changed into a dress, and came out. He was then announced as his new girl name, and the class was told that he was now a girl. So they were all exposed to this highly controversial sexual topic without even thinking about their own sexuality yet. I would totally recommend Pacific Justice Institute if you have something that happened at your school, if you have legal questions. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right and to protect your kids.
If you ever have trouble with your school, teaching your child something that you feel is not appropriate for your child, don't hesitate to give us a call or go to our website, pji.org. We're here to help. And folks, if you decide to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, we have a wonderful gift of appreciation for you. It's our book called Reclaim Your School. Now, this book, and I mentioned this earlier, is a fantastic resource that will help you to legally be able to evangelize public schools. It talks all about the ways that parents can get involved, youth ministers, teachers, administrators. It's a wonderful book, and most importantly, it talks about what students can do to be able to evangelize, live their faith, and share their faith in public schools. This is a free download to you, and it's our gift of appreciation for those of you who decide to become a part of our team and support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis for any amount. So go to our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org. I know you'll find this very helpful in being a shining light in your community. Whether you're homeschool, whether you're in charter schools or in public schools, it's a wonderful resource to be able to reach out to those children who are in public education. So, as far as public education goes, we have with us right now in the studio someone to talk about some public school issues dealing with evangelism and the rights of people to be able to evangelize. Michael Peffer, who is the attorney and head of our Southern California office. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Now, Michael, I understand that there are some situations that we've dealt with in the past, dealing with kids being able to share their faith. For example, maybe to bring a Bible to school. We had a case up in Eureka, not Eureka, but state of Washington, near Seattle, where a high schooler was not allowed to give out gospel tracts to people and be able to share his faith with people. We went into federal court, and that turned out very favorably, didn't it?
It sure did, Brad. And really, the law is on our side here. This is one of those areas that there are few that are pretty crystal clear in the law. And this week we got contacted, and this is not uncommon for us around Easter time, is that we have students who at recess or lunchtime on their own free time, not instructional time, they're handing out tracts or invitations to sunrise service or to their Easter service, and they are confronted by school officials who tell them that you got to go out off the property in order to do that kind of handing out that kind of information.
Yeah, saying they're basically telling these kids this is dirty or this is inappropriate. I mean, that's the implied message of it when you say, "Oh no, you can't give that out in schools." They treat it the same as something that's dirty.
That's right.
And I think that's the message that these kids receive. And of course, also practically speaking, there's also still limited with regard to be able to effectively pass it out. They can pass out invitations to their birthday parties, no problem, but they can't hand out these invitations to a sunrise service. We had a specific matter like this that just came up. Tell us about that particular matter.
Right. Well, in a local school district here in Southern California, we have a student who's on fire, and this student is young. This is elementary school.
Oh, wonderful!
But she is on fire, and she loves her Lord, and so the byproduct of that is she wants to invite people to her church, her fellow students, and they contacted us to say, no, the school officials told them, no, you can't do that on campus, and it's separation of church and state, and if you're going to do that, you have to do that off campus.
Right. Okay, and I know we're actively engaged in that, in letting the administration know that that's not a valid policy.
Yep, we're working through the issues right now, and we're going to send a letter. We actually, this is one of those issues that we have done a lot of work on, but whether it be in Washington or several times here in Southern California. Just last year, I believe it was, we had an Easter case, same thing, trying to invite people to Easter service. And people need to know this is one of those areas of constitutional freedom, the First Amendment, that students are able to do this kind of expression on campus. And we want to support them because the last thing we want to do, here they are on school grounds, and they are bombarded with every other message under the sun.
Right.
Most of them tragically horrible facts under the sun. And yet this person wants to just do something very innocuous, like invite someone to church, and they're being discouraged from doing that. And that's right. It's just wrong.
Yeah,
it's illegal.
And I think people understand the warfare, spiritual warfare involved here, because public schools are not the same as they were when I was in school or you were in school. There was some. I had some bad teachers, but at the same time, what we have now is so much worse because we're dealing with heavy indoctrination and direct attack upon the Christian faith in the textbooks, in the material, and that's a whole other topic we can get into, but another later time. But it's so important that at the very least we have the opportunity for students to bring in the truth and to be able to share their faith and live their faith without being treated like second-class citizens, which is what many of these public school teachers do. And these administrators, some of them do it out of ignorance and say, oh, I don't want to get sued. But a lot of them do it out of spite. And I find more and more, Michael, teachers and educators doing it out of spite and demise and hatred towards Christians. than in the past. In the past, it was even much more just out of ignorance. So that's why I think it's so important that we go to bat for these kids who are willing to stand up for their faith, stand up for Jesus, and not be persecuted because of that. What about the case dealing with a Bible? I mean, there was a student not long ago. They weren't allowed to bring a Bible to school, right?
That's right, and they've contacted us, and we're also in the part. This is a fairly recent contact, and we're in the process of getting that hooked up so we can write to the school district. But that is another thing, is that there is nothing wrong with having a student bring in a Bible. The only limitation here is you just can't do so and read the Bible and talk to your friends about it when you're in instructional time.
In
that really is in a classroom.
In a classroom where the class has begun.
That's right.
And the teacher's teaching. Now, they're in a class, they're waiting for the teacher to come to class, or waiting for the teacher to start teaching. Then, okay, that's fine.
Yes.
But obviously, I can see maybe possibly some student being insubordinate saying, no, I'm not taking the test, I'm going to read the Bible. Actually, I've never heard of that happening.
Either way.
I just hear it when they're during recess or lunchtime or before class starts, and everyone throws a big fit and says, no, you can't do that. You can't bring your Bible. You can't share your Bible. The gentleman, the high schooler, I mentioned earlier, up near the Seattle area, I mean, he was just sharing his faith during lunchtime, break time, and sharing the gospel. 3 kids had already come to Christ, and they were going to expel him.
Right.
They were actually going to expel him from the school district. He had already been suspended 3 times, and they were going to expel him permanently. And then we stepped in, we defended him in federal court, and the court held, federal court, this is a part of the Ninth Circuit, held that it was protected speech, and that they couldn't discriminate against student-initiated speech. And if they couldn't, and in fact, the school was so extreme, they said he couldn't even pass out copies of the Constitution if he wanted to.
That's right.
And that's how extreme they were on limiting student speech, but yet they're so zealous when it comes to promoting things that they believe in or agendas. We see so many teachers get behind encouraging student speech when it's pushing their agenda. But when it comes to students just wanting to express their speech, oftentimes they're isolated and punished.
Yeah, and that's really important. And I want to also stress, look, the book that we're giving away that Brad and Suzanne Dacus wrote, it has a lot of work on this. There's a chapter on this whole issue.
Right.
So I urge you to get the book. It is
right here.
It is a good, helpful. I go to it, and when I need to do some reminder, if I need a quick resource, I'm on the phone speaking to someone, I often go to the book and look for the chapter. So it's very helpful, and we need this. We really need to stand up. Some of the very last protections we have in public schools right now is at least the First Amendment freedom to express your faith during non-instructional time.
Right. Yep. And something else about the book I want people to understand is when they hear that a lawyer wrote it and his wife wrote it, they think, this is going to be so hard to understand. It's going to have cases and ipse post facto, res judicata, whatever. They're just all afraid of this stuff. But we wrote it on the 8th grade level, so just about everyone can understand it. A junior higher can pick it up and read right through it. It's very clear. And also, if they have any questions, I think it's important too, Michael. If they read it and have any questions, they can contact us. We're here. We have 5 full-time attorneys along with hundreds of voluntary affiliate attorneys. And folks, if you have questions at any time, you can contact us. We do all of our work without charge. And let's say you follow what this book says, with Reclaim Your School. You follow what the book says, and you follow our advice, and you get in trouble. Your child gets in trouble. Your youth minister gets in trouble. Your school board member gets in trouble. Gets some kind of pushback. We're here to represent you without charge. We'll go to bat for you without charge. That's what we do at Pacific Justice. And Michael, we don't just do it in California or Dallas. We do it all across the United States. Right? We go to bat for anyone, anywhere, needing this protection, all without charge.
That's right, and that is a really neat thing that's happening in our ministry is that we are getting lots of contact from outside the California, and we're able to marshal together our work along with perhaps local attorneys and work that out when necessary. But yes. And the good thing about the law in this area, the law we're talking about is not California law. There are California protections for this kind of speech, but this is federal constitutional law and
Right.
applies everywhere.
To all states. And that's why we
right.
had cases in, like, for example, Dallas, students wanted to pray before a basketball game. They weren't allowed to. Boom, we had local council step in. We've had other case examples where students wanted to evangelize. We said Washington and other places around the country. So folks, once again, we encourage you, no matter where you are in the United States, we have attorneys all across the United States going to bat for people like you. And if you're listening to this, be our watchdogs. If you see something happening, dealing with public education, religious freedom, parents' rights, sanctity of human life, contact us, the Pacific Justice Institute. We're here to serve you without charge. So folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.